Today, I have a question from Kathy, and Kathy says, "Hi, thanks so much for everything. I could go at great length on what you've done for me, which has been amazing, but I'm sure you've heard it before. But I keep sensing this idea repeated, not in your work, but elsewhere, that if you do something for 21 days, it becomes a habit. My understanding is that's incorrect, and it came from some plastic surgeon in the 1920s who basically made it up. And I think it's kind of dangerous for people to rely on this. Maybe you've already done a video on this, but I didn't see one. Would you mind answering this for me?" So Kathy, yes, you're right. There was a surgeon, his name was Maxwell Maltz, and he was in the 1950s. And what happened was that he observed that within about 21 days, people would become used to whatever surgery he had done to them. So for instance, if they got a nose job, then in 21 days, they started to become used to, or they reported being used to seeing their new face in the mirror. And so he said, well, also in my life, I feel like it takes about 21 days to get used to a new habit. So he actually published a book, and it was called Psycho-Cybernetics. And in this book, he says this, and I'm going to read it so I can quote it. He says, "These and many other commonly observed phenomenon tend to show that it requires a minimum of 21 days for an old mental image to dissolve and the new one to gel." Now, here's the thing. Number one, he said minimum of 21 days. And number two, he said mental image. So he wasn't talking about habits overall. But what happened was Psycho-Cybernetics sold 30 million copies. And so this idea got really distorted, and kind of it was like this game of telephone where someone said to somebody, and all of a sudden this idea became very prevalent in our society that it takes 21 days to form a new habit, and that's how long it takes, and that's the shtick. And so even like Zig Ziglar and all these self-help people were saying 21 days, 21 days. There was all sorts of 21-day fads. And you know the thing. And so interestingly, I was able to find a really cool study that NASA did, and just say, okay, how long does the brain actually take to rewire itself? So not just to think about something differently, but actually to form enough new neural connections that the world is perceived differently. And this study was very cool. So they were planning to send astronauts into space, and they wanted to answer this question: how long will it take for an astronaut to become really accustomed to zero gravity to the point where it doesn't even feel like anything different than regular gravity, where they're honestly, it's not any different. And so what they did is they had these astronauts, these volunteers, wear glasses that flip the world upside down. And so they had to wear these glasses, and every single day, 24 hours a day, they were wearing these glasses, and they were seeing the ceiling on the floor on the ceiling. And so after about 25 days, and it was started at 25, and it was between 25 and 30 days, something changed. And even though they were still wearing the glasses, these people started acting as if they were walking right side up. So the neural connections in the brain had actually formed, and the brain had become rewired to the point where people were seeing the world right side up, even though they were wearing upside down glasses. And so they could eat, they could sleep, they were doing all this stuff. And again, it wasn't just how they thought about it. They weren't trying to say, okay, I see it upside down, but I'm going to navigate this anyway. They actually started seeing the world right side up with these glasses on after 25 to 30 days. So that's the really exciting news, is that although 21 days did come from this crazy place, the truth is it's about 25 to 30 days of doing something. But you have to keep in mind that wearing those glasses was doing something absolutely constantly, 24 hours a day, for those new neural connections to form. So if we're talking about something like changing your relationship with alcohol, I really highly recommend a calendar year, because what happens in a calendar year is you go through every new experience and every single thing. So recently I was diagnosed with a dairy intolerance, right? And that's been really tough. And every new thing that comes up, like we just had a birthday party for my 12-year-old niece last night, and we had ice cream. And so it was painful for me. But I know that at the next birthday party, I had a bowl of fruit and some almond milk, and it was good. But I know at the next birthday party, it's not going to be as painful for me, because I now know how it feels to go through a birthday party and not have the ice cream sundae that everybody else is having. And it's the same thing with drinking. After you go through an entire calendar year, every new experience becomes an experience that you've ingrained in your mind, and eventually your brain does in fact rewire, and it becomes as natural as breathing not to drink and not even to think about drinking. But it does, like anything, take time. So anyway, it was a great question, and thank you so much, Kathy, and have a great day.
Are you ready for a deep dive and truly lasting change?
If so, you might consider my intensive program. It's a 9-week self-led program that you can do in the complete comfort of your own home, and it will truly transform your relationship with alcohol. If you want to learn more about this, go to thisnakedmind.com/intensive. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, as it truly helps the message reach somebody who might need to hear it today.